All right. Um, Welcome everybody to the first traffic calming meeting for Rawlings Road. My name is David Greaves, and I'm a civil engineer that works with NDOT on the traffic calming program. In case you all didn't get that, we are doing this meeting hybrid. So we're all here in person, but there's also a WebEx component for anyone who prefers to join online. That is being recorded. So we'll be able to post the recording to YouTube after tonight. And that way, if anyone wasn't able to attend today, but still, wishes to get the information that we're conveying and offer feedback, they'll have the option to. So should anyone ask you all what's going on, feel free to point them to that. A little bit about the agenda tonight. And just to confirm, is everyone in the room able to read this okay? Or should I monkey around with the focus a little bit? Okay, getting thumbs up, appreciate it. So yeah, we're going to start with an overview of the program to kind of talk about why we're here, what kind of project we're talking about. Then I'd like to hear from you all sort of what is going on Rawlings Road, specifically like what inspired you all to apply. Are there problems that you're experiencing that we should know about before we get into design? Next, we're going to take a look at the toolbox. So we've got a few different strategies we use on traffic calming projects. We just want to explain how all those work, sort of what the idea behind them is. And then we're going to take a look at a draft concept design. So it's by no means complete, and certainly we want to hear from you all sort of what kind of project you'd like. And then after this meeting, we'll do a real design process, produce some construction plans, and then ultimately we'll all be able to vote on those. After we take a look at that concept design, we're going to talk about the project next steps, just make sure everyone is well aware of how projects like these proceed. For anyone that may be watching the recording after tonight, we want you to know that in addition to this meeting, there is an online survey that's currently live. So we can get comments from anyone through there. That can be accessed by scanning the QR code on the right side of the screen, as well as going to engage.Nashville.gov/traffic-calming. So jumping into the program overview, what is traffic calming? This is a program that focuses on residential streets, so not the arterial boulevards or like commercial corridors, mainly focused on neighborhoods. And the projects we do focus on physical solutions to encourage lower speeds over significant lengths. So we don't tend to do like spot treatments so much or single intersections, but people apply for whole like segments of street, several blocks at a time usually. And then the primary goal of this program is speed reduction. That ultimately ties into safety. We'll talk about that in more detail in just a minute. But you'll kind of notice that those are the things that our tools will tend toward. So there are 3 E's in traffic calming. Those are education, enforcement, and engineering. Now, engineering is bold and underlined here because that's the component that Nashville's Department of Transportation has the greatest ability to affect. So what we'd like to do is design a permanent solution for the street that creates safe conditions at all times, rather than only relying on education, asking people to drive slower and not relying solely on enforcement, because we know that police are not able to be everywhere at all times enforcing speed limits. The reason that safety and speed are so closely linked and why reducing speed results in better safety outcomes really comes down to physics. So when a pedestrian is struck by a vehicle, they have a pretty good chance of surviving that if the vehicle is going 25 miles an hour or below. That chance unfortunately decreases as speeds climb. So you can see 35 miles an hour, that goes down to about 2/3, and 45 miles an hour, as we might expect, you don't really have a good chance at surviving. So when we see streets in neighborhoods where people live and high speeds like that overlap, it's an indication to us that street's a pretty good candidate for traffic calming, just to get the driving behavior a little more in line with what kind of a safe neighborhood street might look like. Are you all able to see okay? I can kind of step back. Okay, great. This is a really popular program. So in March of 2025, when Rawlings Road was selected, y'all were one of 25 streets chosen from a pool of just over 600. We'll talk about exactly how that selection process happens in a bit. But all that is to say, there are a lot of traffic calming projects that have been done, but even more that are seeking to be done. So we work as quick as we can, but there is a lot of demand around Davidson County. Just so everyone knows, there is a live traffic calming project tracker. A screenshot of that is on the right side of the screen. But basically, it color codes streets as they've applied, get selected, and then move through the process. So there are a few tools that the traffic calming program has in our toolbox. We'll take a look at those in detail in just a minute, but there's a lot of things that Metro does that this project is not really a good fit for. Sidewalks are a good example, traffic signals, bike lanes, things like that. We do want to make sure everyone is aware of Hub Nashville as a resource to make requests from Nashville's government for all sorts of things. So that can be accessed by calling 311, going to hub.Nashville.gov online. And there's also a mobile app if anyone prefers to use that way. But if we do encounter anything that you all are interested in that would be a good fit for a hub request, I'll be sure to let you know and help you access this if you'd like. So on to how Rawlings Road was selected. Basically, when a street applies, we take the application and then have a period of time when we study all of the streets that have applied. We basically measure speeds, we count the volume of cars, and we look at a few other factors, crash history, whether or not there are sidewalks, and how close a street is to things like schools, community centers, things that might generate pedestrian trips. So all 5 of those get a score, they're lumped together, and then every street gets a score basically, and those are all ranked top to bottom. So basically, y'all wound up in that top 25 through that kind of data-driven process. Some of that data that we collected on Rawlings Road was the 85th percent speed. That was 38 miles an hour. Now, what that means is of everyone that drove on the road that day, 15% of people who were measured were going above 38 miles an hour, and 85% were going 38 or below. So that's kind of just a statistic that we use to gauge the general speed on roads and compare them amongst each other. But it is by no means, like the maximum or the average, anything like that. We also counted 616 vehicles used Rawling that day. I'm sure, as you all know, that's way more than live on Rawlings. So we suspect there is some cut-through traffic going on. And then you have a pretty narrow street. So 19 to 20 feet is just about 2 normal travel lanes. And that'll impact some of the tools we have at our disposal. This is a map of the project. So it's just this short section between Clarksville Pike and Eaton's Creek Road. This magenta line here does mean that the other side of Rawlings has applied with a separate application. So they also have data that are being ranked and scored. And we hope it'll get selected sometime soon. So that is kind of the big program overview. And now I want to hear from you all just sort of about your street before we go and talk about the toolkit. So I guess one question to start off with is what do you all experience on Rawlings that traffic calming might be good for? Traffic. Makes sense.
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is it's a cut through in the mornings and evenings. So if you look at traffic, midday's typically not an issue. But in the morning, people are hopping off the interstate and hopping over the Clarksville Highway because it's a faster way into Nashville. Mm-hmm. And then in the evening, they're taking the Clarksville Highway out of Nashville and then swapping over to the interstate when they get to Jolton because it allows them to skip that terrible stretch of interstate coming out of Nashville. And unfortunately, we just end up kind of being the victims of whatever the travel speed is at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Certainly when we see streets that are adjacent to roads that are designed to be a little higher speed, sometimes it's easy to forget, when you've turned onto a residential road that has a lower speed limit, it feels like you might still be in the mode of going a little more quickly.
Do you have any idea what the time of day they check the speed through there?
So the count happens for a period of 24 hours. So I don't think it starts at midnight. I want to say maybe they go out there around 7 and just like wait until the next day. So we get a full profile on like an entire day's worth of traffic. So we're able to kind of see like the peaks of travel and all that.
Do you have any idea what instrument they use for that?
Yeah, they use what's called a tube counter. So they place an electric box on the side of the road, and then they stretch two black plastic tubes across the road. And basically, the difference in time from one tube's worth of like air bursting into the machine versus the other bursting into the machine, it reads that and calculates the speed from there.
My observation, I've never seen a car travel 38 miles an hour or more.
Mhm.
My wife. And also stop at I don't know how they get off of Rawlings Road on East Street. Majority of them go to the stop sign there.
Oh, got it.
When they passed my house, and I was talking to a lady earlier, my neighbor. I was standing in my garden with me, and this motorcycle came by. And the rider was larger than the motorcycle, like motorcycles have been riding in. But anyway, when he passed my house, I could tell he was running much faster than 30 miles an hour. And he started waving his arms like a bird.
Oh my.
Facing the red light, far behind me.
Mhm.
That's just part of it. My wife and I built our house there 30-something years ago. Yeah. And from my observation, that street has never been repaired.
Mhm.
It does not have any dividing lines. Those street markers supposed to have and trucks that come through there with heavy equipment. Sometimes they keep meeting to the car. The car has to stop, go to the side.
Mhm.
And people get, including my wife, you get out and walk, you know, there.
I think multiple ones in here have also had our mailboxes mowed down multiple times. I know yours got hit this summer, or it's got hit twice before we even moved in. So it's.
Didn't mention the mailboxes. I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, I put it up 3 times. My wife and I was standing in the front yard on Sunday afternoon. This guy comes out of a truck, takes the mailbox all the way to Clarkson. So
Goodness.
I got a mailbox.
Mhm. Well, just to summarize for the benefit of anyone watching the recording, we've heard a lot about some heavy speeding. The 38 mile an hour, 85th percent struck some people as low, and then reports of reckless driving, many knocked down mailboxes, kind of the hallmarks of a street where people are going too quickly and not driving as carefully as we would all like to see. Anyone else before we move on to the toolkit? I think I've gotten a relatively good picture of what y'all are experiencing, able to say the least.
10:30.
Oh yeah, does it? Mhm. Yeah, understood.
I think there's supposed to be a limit on trucks, delivery trucks and the line. Unless they're delivering in the street,
Mhm.
they ignore that too.
Is it trucks that are like coming through, or are they like delivering to Oh, okay, got it.
We get
That's
semi, dump trucks.
Yeah, Nancy Cole is one of the biggest
Oh, I see, like full semis.
tractor trailer.
Got it.
Not small,
Yeah.
tractor trailer. Get it back up on the 24. These big tractor trailer trucks coming through there.
Mhm.
I think a lot of this is a product of probably what's gonna end up being a Nashville request, which is there's no light, no traffic light at the end of Old Clarksville Pike
Mhm.
where it meets close to the highway. And even though that's a wider road, and even though it's a higher speed limit, nobody uses that because you can't make the left-hand turn from Old Clarksville Pike onto Clarksville Highway because it's got a blind hill right there.
Oh, I see.
So it's only advantageous to go down that road if you're gonna make a right turn. So anybody that wants to make a left uses Rawlings as a cut through. So it almost sounds like if we do vote yes to traffic calming measures on it, it might need to be paired with a Hub Nashville request to put a traffic light in at the end of Old Clarksville Pike,
Got it.
so that traffic is directed that way on the higher speed limit, safe roads.
That's the same with the fire department.
Mhm.
The fire department comes through Rawlings, which I don't mind, believe them,
Mhm.
believe, but the way that the fire hall is structured, when they come out there in the fire, on the fire, they have to make a right turn, 90-degree turn, for about 100 feet. Then they have to make a dead stop, with another on the East Street Road. Then by the time they get up to speed, they have to slow down, right to stop, make a 90-degree turn on the Rawlings Road to get in the red line.
Mhm.
It takes them forever just making a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the fire department using this road, that's frequent enough to notice, I assume, like it happens. Okay. Got it. And are they on their way to like emergencies? Like, are the lights on? Okay, great. Understood.
Yeah. They use them today, although the construction crew is out there, but I think that's the first time I've heard them use sirens on our street. It's left.
Got it. Well, this is all really good to know. Thank you all for sharing it. That definitely kind of will color our discussion around what sort of tools we might propose on Rawlings. Yes, sir.
I have a user of this. Notice the condition. I've seen the couple of areas. Added upon.
Great. Good to know. Well, why don't we move on, run through some of the tools we've got, and then take a look at our concept design, just so you all can sort of see what we're thinking about so far, and then offer feedback on what you might like to see. So diving into the toolkit, the most common traffic calming measure we use in Nashville are speed cushions. I suspect most people have encountered these somewhere in Davidson County before. But basically they work similar to speed bumps, but with a higher target speed. So they're a little bit longer than the kind you'd see in like a grocery store parking lot. And that's because we're really looking for folks to go 20, 25 miles an hour and not like 5 to 10. They have gaps in them, so they're 6 feet wide deliberately. The idea there is that they would have a reduced impact to emergency vehicles. So for the fire trucks that use Rawlings, they have wider wheelbases than people's private cars, so they're able to hit these a little bit better, not be as disrupted as smaller personal vehicles. Similar to those are speed tables. These are made out of the same materials. They're modular rubber devices bolted onto existing asphalt. They work the same. The only difference is they don't have those gaps, and we probably would not consider it on a road like Rawlings, just because we do know that it is, used by emergency vehicles. So we don't want to inhibit any of their operations. And the reason that these are such a common implementation in Nashville is because we've observed them working pretty well for the program's goals. So the chart that we're looking at on the screen here are the results of a limited study of 6 traffic calming projects that were installed fairly early on. And we saw the average speed on all of those roads come down from 31 miles an hour to 22. And the 85th percent speed, that statistic we talked about earlier, came down from 37 miles an hour down to 25. So all that is to say is if we do implement a vertical measure approach, so putting speed cushions on Rawlings, we would expect to see similar results. We may not be able to do much about the number of vehicles using Rawlings, but speeding at the rate that they're speeding now would become much less comfortable. And we see that people do tend to slow down when these are installed. Now, not every road is suitable for vertical measures. If it is especially hilly or curvy, maybe the speed limit is higher than 30. That's kind of our maximum. We have radar feedback signs. So these report the speed one is going as they approach the sign and hopefully serve as a reminder, if you are speeding, to slow down. Unlike vertical measures, these don't physically affect vehicles. There's also no enforcement to them. So these aren't like taking pictures of license plates or anything, sending tickets. It's just an informational device. But we do see that it has some speed reduction effect. On wide roads, we sometimes do narrowing. So this is painting white edge lines on the side of the road to take what would be a road that's maybe wider than it necessarily needs to be and shrink it down to a little bit more of a claustrophobic feel. That can slow down speeds just sort of by psychologically making it less comfortable to go really fast. But again, it doesn't physically affect vehicles. It's more of an informational tool. I saw your hand raised up. Do you have a question? Oh, great. Awesome. Well, to that point, anyone is welcome to ask questions. This is a small enough group. We can just kind of go by hand raising and such. Moving on to bulb outs. So at intersections that have a lot of excess asphalt, that can make it easy to take turns faster than is safe for neighborhoods. So when we see intersections like these, we sometimes propose what's called bulb outs, and that's narrowing the road at the location of an intersection. Some advantages this has: it slows down cars as they're making turns, and it also reduces the distance that pedestrians have to cross while they're conflicting with vehicles. And then in neighborhoods where we see a lot of on-street parking, it can help enforce the existing parking regulations that disallow parking too close to a crosswalk. So improving the visibility also makes pedestrian crossing safer. On wide roads, we can do chicanes. This is where we take a wide but straight road, narrow it, and zigzag it back and forth. This slows vehicles just by forcing them to maneuver as they're going along the road rather than kind of a straight shot where it might be a little more inviting to go more quickly than the speed limit. Rawlings is too narrow. You just got those 2 lanes as it is. So we're not entertaining chicanes on this street. And then lastly, we sometimes do traffic circles. These work like bulb outs, but narrow from the inside out rather than the outside in. Essentially, they just create a little miniature roundabout at an intersection, and that can help, particularly if like speeding through intersections is a problem. So we can take any questions about those, but I'll throw our draft concept up on the screen now. Any questions about what I've covered before I kind of go into detail about what we're thinking here? Okay, so what we got in mind is a speed cushion based design. As I mentioned, Rawlings is a little narrower than is necessary for some of those other more like creative tools. And we've got these spaced around 300 feet apart. We typically operate with a range of between 300 and 500 feet for the spacing. That's to make sure that we're not putting these so close that we're like really wasting everyone's time, but we don't want to have gaps that are long enough for the impatient among us to like speed back up to dangerous speeds in between the cushions. So that 300 to 500 feet is sort of the sweet spot. And basically on a street like Rawlings, how long it is, that means we can fit 4 if we're going on the tighter side, or 3 would also be a fine design if y'all prefer kind of the longer spacings. Based on what I've heard, I really feel like either one would be an appropriate approach to the street. So I'm curious to hear what y'all think, but that's sort of what we've got in mind so far. Yes, sir.
Question of placement, having gone through various, it's very easy sometimes based upon where they're placed and whether it's grass and so it's the way that people having lawns and bandages and other stuff. So I think placement, although we're trying to be uniform strides, the placement of these things in order to ensure that these things are actually doing what they're supposed to do, not only constructed.
Yeah, no doubt. That was a lesson that we learned the hard way for sure. Certainly some of the earlier projects, that wasn't on our radar quite as much. It is something that we've observed quite a bit, and we now have a few strategies that help us see less of that.
I've seen some places where you can sign saying speed bump, it's right there. Therefore, there's no way of that.
Yeah. Mhm. So
Neighborhoods in Dallas, they, like Dallas and Hills area,
really,
they had to come in and I think football players next to the speed bump so that people would stop, because I mean, you could fit an entire car.
yeah.
in there. I think this looks fantastic. I've got a really deep ditch in front of my house, so if you want to put one right in front of my house. Big ditch in front of your house. Would it be the three across like that, or would it be two because of the road of them?
Likely just two. Yeah. I think 24 feet wide is sort of the line where it could go either way. But less than that, we've really just got room for two. And as narrow as 19 to 20 feet is, I think two should be plenty. We'll kind of put them closer to the edges, so that no one's like tempted to go off. And then, yeah, if we do go out and see that the spot where we would like to place the cushion does have kind of more of a flat or inviting place to traverse, that is when we'll put, a sign pretty strategically to dissuade people of going around them. Do you have a question?
No.
Oh, great. Sorry. Cool. Well, any other questions before we talk about sort of the next steps in the project? Awesome. So this flowchart here is what every traffic calming project in Nashville goes through. First bubble here is the application. Y'all have done that already. Next is prioritization and selection. We kind of talked about that with the pie chart. And then we are here at the red circle, the first neighborhood meeting. So we've collected a lot of good feedback tonight, certainly heard more about the problems you're experiencing on Rawlings. And next we're going to do a field visit where we come out, really measure the road in the specific places, kind of try to gather that road width, grade data, and then look for anything that we might not have considered from our kind of desktop review. So making sure that if there is somewhere someone might drive around, we can be a little strategic about those placements. And then we're going to draw some construction plans, basically telling the contractor like exactly where we propose these, what specifically that cushion arrangement needs to look like, and which signs go where. Once that's done, we can either schedule a second neighborhood meeting to take a look at what we came up with, or we can move on to the balloting, where we post those plans online and then send the mailers for y'all to vote yes or no on the project. If anyone didn't know that this is a project that, we want to make sure y'all want it before we go and build the thing. So we'll talk about how that ballot works in more detail in just a second. But should the ballot be successful, that'd be 2/3 of respondents voting yes. It'll be entered into the construction queue, and then several months later, it should be built. Any questions about the process, or should we move on to balloting procedures and all that good stuff?
I heard about a street that had those, and the fire department used that street, and they complained about it. And the
Cushions?
speed bumps.
Yeah.
Were taken away again.
Got it.
Would get a choice in there? The fire department saying, well, we don't like that. We have got an option of going down another road.
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, I haven't heard of that particular case. Do you know, was it pretty recently?
No.
Okay, got it. Yeah, a long time ago, there were traffic calming projects that didn't last or like weren't permanent in the same sense that we do them today. Right now, we do these on roads that we sort of know the fire department ought to be okay with having them on. So we haven't seen a lot of removals in this program, but certainly like if they did, make us aware of a safety concern that we didn't contemplate, that would be a discussion that we'd have. All right, so balloting, basically we're going to send out mailers similar to the ones that invited you all here tonight. They'll have a QR code and a website you can go to that will take you to an online form where you vote, yes or no. You'll put in your name and your address just to make sure we know who it is. And then also a unique ID. So each of the mailers will have a code like individual to your property. And that's to make sure that we don't get like one person, spamming a bunch of votes, things like that. The voting period should be open about 6 weeks. We put the end date of that on the mailer. So if you maybe like got the postcard late or something, just try to vote before the date on the mailer. And then you'll see like a crew that generally knows each other. So if y'all get the mailers, maybe like mention it to your neighbors. We've heard stories that, maybe someone lost theirs, it wasn't delivered for one reason or another. So I want to make the point that if you think you should have gotten a mailer but didn't, you can let us know and we can just like look up your code and give it to you. So we want everyone who wants to vote to be able to. A little bit about the specific like eligibility. It's one vote per property. That'd be like a residential property or a school or a church, not so much like a business. I don't think you have any businesses here, but like if there was like a tire shop or something like that, we're concerned with the neighborhood residents. And then if anyone owns like multiple properties, we'll send them one ballot instead of like the number of properties they own. Any vacant properties, so just like ones that have no buildings on them, we usually weed out. And then oh yeah, it's properties that like actually touch the street that we're designing on. So basically this map is the mailing list that we put together, and the ballot list would be very similar unless like one of those ineligibility things came up. And that is it for content. Any questions, or is there anything I can go back to? Or final thoughts. Really, we can talk about just about whatever.
Property owner or property, there's a resident that gets the vote?
Great question. It's the property owner. We certainly take feedback from anyone who's renting, but in terms of like sending out the ballots to vote, that'd be the owners of the properties. If anyone needs to get in touch with me after this meeting, this is my email address. And then I'll also ask you copy NDOT TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. That loops in like the whole team just to make sure everyone stays in the know. And then, yeah, for anyone on the recording, watching this after the fact, here's another QR code and link to that survey that'll be live for a couple more weeks, basically, until we finish the design. We'll leave it up and see if anyone has online comments to make. Does that about do it for everyone? Cool. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Really appreciated meeting all of you and hearing your thoughts on the project. Oh, sorry, forgot one piece of business pertaining to second meeting or ballot. Does anyone prefer like one way or another? Would you rather schedule a second meeting or view the plans online and just do the ballot a little sooner? Ballot.
Whatever the quickest way is.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I don't imagine this will change a whole lot based on tonight. So I think that makes a good amount of sense. We'll plan on that unless we hear otherwise. Great. Well, thanks everyone. Really appreciate your time.